What's up, guys? I'm Crystal Lee Naomi, aka Jasmine Borders on Tyler Perry's Sisters. Be sure to subscribe to the Haves and the Have-Nots review for not only reviews on the Haves and the Have-Nots, but also on Sisters. And while you're at it, give your girl a follow on Instagram at Crystal Lee Naomi. And I'll see you every Wednesday at 9, only on BET.
All right, Sisters fans, hope everyone's doing well. Sorry again, I actually was asleep during the episode, and it's sad because kind of like with the haves and the have-nots, I realized this is my last week of being able to do consistent live streams in the apartment before I move. But to be completely honest, it's 2 a.m. right now. I just finished watching the episode. I had to pause the episode several times. It probably took me about a little over an hour to watch the one episode without commercials because I was just like scratching my head because of the fact that I feel like this season. Remember last week, if you watched my review last week, and I talked about how, yeah, it wasn't a perfect episode, but it was definitely a strong start to a new season, far greater than the ending of season 2. Why the hell does it feel like this episode was a massive step back, almost damn near all the way to season 1? This episode gets a 4 out of 10. Honestly, I think that score is a little bit too high, but when it did good, it did really good, but a majority of the episode was not well done at all. I'm just glad, kind of like have and have nots. I'm glad I did not stay awake to watch this live because I would have not have been kind on Twitter. I mean, Danny was good except for one scene, but I'll get to that. Zach was phenomenal. I mean, the thing about it is kind of like on the haves and the have-nots to an extent. The characters who had the less screen time, the less screen time, I felt were the most enjoyable to watch during the episode. Because within the first 2 minutes of the episode, I was already like, so we're starting with this bullshit. Okay. All right, so before moving forward, and again, we're going to talk about this dang episode. Go ahead and hit like, hit subscribe, hit the bell icon and select all. That way you don't miss out whenever I post content on the channel. And follow me on social media. Links are in the description below. I don't even know how I'm going to make it through this season. I'm going to be completely honest. I'll talk about this first, even though it's not the first scene. They updated the intro, and Fatima's in it. I like that. Now, don't get me wrong, though. I am a bit curious why episode 2 is when they opted to update the intro as opposed to episode 1. You know, last week I did a video on this very subject about why Fatima wasn't added to the intro. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's not uncommon for television shows to do this like mid-season or something, like update the intro because of a new thing. I think one of the most, in my world of television, that is, the most notable one is like, let's say in Power Rangers, whenever there's a new Ranger added to the mix, even if it's like episode 10 or something, they'll update the intro to add the new character in there. So with Fatima, I was like, maybe they'll wait until season 4, the back half of season 3, or better yet, wait until Fatima has been fully integrated into Sistas as a sister, quote unquote number 5, because, obviously the hurdle of her and Karen will be the biggest thing for them to overcome, before she's fully accepted into the group. But no, they updated her. And I like the visuals. I'm not going to lie, though. I think I've only watched it one time. I'll probably do a separate video talking about the updated the updated theme song. But I still think the season 2 intro is my favorite so far. Because like I say, this is only my first time watching season 3. It's a new intro. I need to watch it a couple more times. But I don't know why. I think my favorite part was definitely Novi's part. The way she was smiling and all. I mean, she still has that same smile in this intro, but like I said, I'll do another video. I think my biggest issue for me is that last week did a good job with overall or all-around pacing. This week, I felt like we were just stuck in the same ruts as usual. So the episode starts off. Andy's brought into the bedroom. We pick up where we left off. Gary sitting there with the paramedic. He's apparently just fine. Jasmine shot him with rubber bullets. Rubber bullets. Now, I will say this much. I didn't mind Gary's explanation because it made sense. Basically, because the fact he's always suspected Jasmine to go off the deep end like this. So without her knowing, at some point he had replaced all the real bullets in the guns within the house with rubber bullets. So it seems clear that she got the gun from their house. And then, even Andy was like, oh, so that explains how you lost your keys, because she went to your hotel room and got them. So I'll make sure to change the locks in the morning. And apparently, it's like, yeah, Jasmine's going to be in jail for a long time. And he's like, yeah, I hope so, for good. And I'm like, what? He's going to leave to go pick up their son, their autistic son, from Jasmine's mother's house. Andy's like, I want to go with you. And it's like, no, that's not a good idea, because if you go, then it will probably set off her sisters, and we don't need that, because back in season 1, he mentioned how Jasmine's side of the family is crazy to begin with. So Andy's like, well, I can stay in the car. Gary's like, no, you don't need to go. I'll go get him. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't he say bring him back here? But in any case, I was definitely getting some season 1 vibes here, because if you paid attention to the background music in the scene, it definitely had that sinister undertone, like Gary's like, oh, I love you, kisses her, and then limps away. And I'm just like, this is Gary in full season 1 mode, where he says he's going to go away to do one thing, but then he's not doing what he said he was going to do. So this entire scenario just seems so unrealistic. I mean, remember the video I did after people were like, it was a setup? It definitely doesn't seem right. Now, remember in the Haves and the Have-Nots, what was it, season 6 finale, when Wyatt shot his parents, and then we had to wait 6 months for it to come back, and then we find out he didn't shoot Catherine. I thought that was bullcrap. And then when they explained that, oh yeah, well, Wyatt used quail hunting bullets, so they weren't extremely lethal, but based on where Jim was shot, it still was a close call. I accepted that, because it made sense, because Wyatt went to the basement and then found his grandfather's hunting gun and whatnot, and he found the bullets, so he probably didn't know, quail bullets not being super lethal or whatnot. I don't know, but in this case, I feel like we've seen such a untrustworthy track record with Gary that it's hard to believe this wasn't arranged somehow. All right, so then we go over to the intro and then the next scene. So it's the next morning, the next day, or SpongeBob. The narrator would pop up and go, the next day. So Karen's getting ready for work. Aaron's still hungover. He needs to control his drinking. He apologizes for what he did coming over, stripping down. Basically, he was upset. He wanted to come over to make a love to Karen, to prove that he's better than Zach inside of her. But at the core of it, Zach is still in her heart, not just her head. So he doesn't want to talk about the situation, even though she's like, you want to talk about it? No. I just need some time, and I think you need time too. So basically, it's like, don't call me, I'll call you. We need some time and space before we talk about this again. And he gets halfway dressed and walks out the door. I'm like, Aaron, you could have at least fully put your shirt on before you walked out of the apartment. It's just like last season when Zach was just constantly popping up at Fatima's apartment and whatnot. Basically, it's like, boy, button up your damn shirt. You ain't got to keep walking around like Tyler Perry. Get these people to button up the damn shirts. So my thing with Aaron is he has a drinking problem, and it's like you only want to have sex when you're drunk, and then it's like I think for me, it's like Aaron is a representation of why some people, look at Christians as being extremely judgmental and hypocritical. It's like, how dare you preach to me about, not drinking or getting drunk or whatever, or being celibate. And here you are, a drunk pastor stripping down, basically trying to break your celibacy. So to me, aside from Aaron not being able to fully be trustworthy, because I feel like he has ulterior motives we don't know about, if I were in Karen's shoes or heels, I would be like, well, it's like, no, it's like this whole thing with you is confusing. It's like you say not to do this, but then when you get drunk, then it's okay to have sex. It's stupid. I mean, thankfully this scene wasn't as long as last week, so it wasn't a bad scene. It's just like, I don't see the need for him to come around. And not to mention, after he had walked in on Zach and Karen at the salon, he was the one that told her, you know what, you need some time. I'll talk to you in a while. But then he's the one that shows up drunk. And I'm like, he leaves saying that, oh yeah, well, we both need some time and some space and whatever. And I'm like, well, he'll probably be the one to come to her doorstep again. Basically, Aaron is becoming the Zach of, like, you know, how in season 1 where Zach will just randomly pop up whenever Karen, you know, let's say Karen or Aaron are talking, and then Zach will randomly roll up on the bike. That's going to be Aaron, but every time he rolls up, he's going to be drunk. So we go over to Preston and Danny, a good scene here. Basically, you know, Preston's getting ready. He's like, yeah, what's your plans for today? Oh, yeah, I'm just going to work, coming home. Oh, yeah, well, I'm going to go see my mom. And then Danny, rightfully, is like, she kind of freaks out, but it's not like to the extent where it's annoying. She's like, wait, so you're going to see your mom? What about your good old brother? It's like, no, she's mad at them, but she says she wants to see me. So why are you asking what I'm going to do after work? Preston, don't let me come home and then she magically pops up with hillbillies. It's like, no, it's not going to be like that. I'll learn my lesson. And I like that. It was quick and to the point, as opposed to her just going into full on, I hate you, get out of here mode. But no, this was a very short, sweet conversation to the point. And it's kind of funny because there's somebody's knocking on the door and she's like, wait, it's the first. Like, Danny, don't worry, the rent's paid. No, she finds something. So she went to hide. And then Sabrina comes in and Preston leaves. And, you know, Sabrina comes to her quote unquote guru for advice about the Jacoby situation. And this is the part that just annoyed me. The fact that Sabrina, even though she was rightfully called out last week by Calvin because of the fact that she's unable to make her own decisions about anything and allows other people to influence her, she goes over to Danny whining about the whole situation. Danny doesn't want to hear her whine. She doesn't want to hear her bullshit. And it's like, what am I going to do? I'm going to work. Jacoby's there. And it's like, you know, I called last night and the situation kind of got out of hand. What am I going to do? And it's like, I'm not like you. I just can't have sex with somebody and then, you know, ignore them the next day. Honestly, I will admit I'm kind of like Sabrina in the sense that I'm not able to just cut off people emotionally like that, especially if there was some sort of connection. So yeah, it would be semi-wise to get advice like this. But remember, Danny's the person who gave you the quote-unquote tip-off, which was the rumor about Calvin doing drugs, which pretty much led to her getting him to take a drug test and all this other bull crap. But in any case, Danny just says, ignore him. And then, you know, she begins to overthink it. It's like, you know, act normal. Yeah, that was Tyler. Just act normal. Then it's like, you know what? Just ignore him and that's it. So after that, we go over to Andy's place. You know, again, it's the next morning. Everybody's getting ready to go for work. Andy's about to leave. Then Gary shows up with a guy. As soon as he walked in, I'm like, Lord Tyler Perry, I know you're not doing to Jasmine and Gary's son what you did to little Jimmy on the Haves and the Have-Nots. You know, Celine and Jim's youngest son. Remember, they got two, Carlos being the oldest. I'm like, when we first saw him, he was just like a 6-year-old, 7-year-old. But now he shows up in the hospital with a gun, and he's got to be in his like early 20s. And I'm like, I know you didn't age this boy up. But no, it turns out he's just a photographer friend of Gary who needs a model because one of them wasn't able to attend a photo shoot. And it's going to be a photo shoot after work for some dresses. Andy's like, you know, she isn't sure. She's never done it before. And then, you know, he makes a comment about her cheekbones. I'm like, yeah, KJ Smith does have some adorable cheekbones. But it's like she'll agree to do it after work. And then he leaves and Gary's like, well, hey, I just went down to the police station to file a report complaining about what happened with Jasmine. You need to do the same thing later on. And basically it's like, and have you told your girls about this? No, I didn't tell them about Jasmine. Good. You know, it's embarrassing enough. It's like, yeah, well, I learned not to tell them everything from you because remember last night before they went to bed and before Jasmine showed up, Gary did ask about, you know, hey, don't tell your girls everything, like the fact that I moved in and whatnot. I have my thoughts about that. I agree with Gary to an extent because not everything about your relationship needs to be gossip amongst your friends. But at the same time, I feel like this is probably Gary slowly but surely manipulating and isolating Andy from her girls because basically when it hits the fan about everything going on between Jasmine, Gary moving in with her, that's going to make them even madder and that's probably going to make her, you know, an outcast, so to speak, because he's not forcing her to stay away from her girls. But even Danny at one point later in the episode brings this up, holding out, basically not being one of the girls. So I feel like he is manipulating the situation. So Andy's like, well, so what about your son? So yeah, I picked him up and he's with my mom. Gary has a mom. Remember in season 1 towards the end when Jasmine got tossed off the parking garage and landed on the car? What did she do? The thing that really set Gary off, she took his mother's urn and brought up the fact that his mother died in a fire when he was a kid. She began to pour the urn in the gas tank of the car before igniting it on fire. Because again, the irony of, hey, your mother died in the fire, so let me pour these ashes in the gas tank. So this is either complete bullshit that he's selling Andy, or he's referring to his stepmother, like maybe his father got remarried, and it's like, yeah, my son loves being over there. And basically Andy wants to meet him, but of his autism and whatnot, not being around his mom now really isn't a good time for that. And basically says that, hey, I got a surprise for you after the photo shoot tonight at 7. So here we go with Gary making these huge decisions and whatnot without telling Andy, basically, disguising it behind the ruse of a photo shoot. And it's almost as if, hey, Andy, I'm being open and honest. I'm giving you a say in the decision making, but he's still making the decision making. He's still making decisions himself. There's definitely something foul going on here. And again, that sinister music was playing in the background during certain scenes between these two. And I'm like, oh, man. Because he said he has to go to work. And I'm like, I get that Gary is supposedly a professional athlete. But I'm like, does he still do athletics? Or is this at a point where he's like retired from athletics? So he's more on the like business side of thing with like, merch, endorsement deal. I don't know. Okay. Next page of notes. Yeah, this is the last page of notes, but it's a full page. So Maurice is working, and the guy that was over at his apartment, the one that was in Calvin's room with his ex, shows up with a check for $5,000 and says, oh, okay, so where'd you get this from? You must have worked hard for it. Yeah. Calvin, the construction, because this was mentioned back in season 1 that Calvin does like construction and whatnot. Carpentry. Yeah, like Jesus. Okay. And, he's like, Maurice questions him and realizes that I know what you did. You stole Calvin's checkbook when you were in his room that night. And he's like, hey, don't please don't report this. Don't do anything. It's like, I need to buy my baby. My baby needs a pair of shoes. He's like, work it out. I love how Maurice flipped down to the song. I loved it. But basically he calls 911 and locks the doors because, he's like, hey, Maurice, I'll do anything if you just forget about this. But Jacoby comes in for work, and the guy uses, I forgot his name. I think he said it back in like season 2, but honestly, I forgot. He basically runs out when Jacoby comes in, and then Maurice screams at Jacoby to stop him, like, you ain't worth shit, boy. So basically, him and Jacoby, well, basically Maurice jumps into Jacoby's situation about how, oh yeah, Sabrina told me everything about last night, you and your penis and whatnot. And then it's like, okay, Maurice, let's not go overboard here. So then Sabrina comes in and, says hello to Maurice, but pretty much ignores Jacoby. Like, oh, she must be mad at you, Geppetto. So then we go over to Zach and Danny at work. Zach is doing his thing. He's helping people around the airport and working for tips and whatnot. So he goes over to Danny, and she takes the tip out of his hand and basically is like, hey, oh yeah, this for all the food and whatnot you've been eating at my place. I'm like, Danny, you so wrong for that though. It's like Zach paid rent for like a month, but then you took that money and then you kicked him out in like less than a week, and you want to talk about the food and what he owes you, and then also tries to throw it in his face about the whole situation. Oh yeah, you owe Karen money too, all the stuff you took from her. Danny, all the times in season 1 where remember when Danny was a complete B in season 1 because she was mad about her girls holding out on her and everything because, oh, you talk about me behind my back, mainly towards Karen. It's like, it's like you always talk about going to lunch and dinner and whatnot and hanging out, and you never pay. You basically mooch off of other people. None of the girls ever said that, yeah, Danny, you need to pay us back. So I just hate the fact that the double standard here is Zach is constantly being, told off to his face about, oh yeah, you owe me this and owe her that. But thankfully, Zach shut that down, saying, well, I gave her $5,000 last night. Wait, you gave Karen $5,000 last night? Yeah, I'm going to work hard, make this money, pay it back. That way she can never be like, yeah, Zach took this from me and Zach owes me. I'm like, Zach, do your thing. I ain't got nothing bad to say about you this episode. So again, Danny just tries to bring up the whole thing with, so what about you and Fatima? It's I ain't talking to you about that. It's like, you love her? No, I don't love her. I just like her a lot. Well, yeah, well, you backslid when you went to the salon with Karen and whatnot. So what's going on with that? And Zach is like, I ain't got time for this. I'm getting back to work to get these tips. And when I tell you, I don't want to get up here and preach and everything, but it's like, that's the thing about Zach here. And it's the fact that when you're trying to do better for yourself, there are always going to be the people who will try to throw in your face the person who you used to be. Oh, you weren't shit. Oh, you were mooching off of other people. Oh, you were taking stuff but never paying them back. But Zach was doing his damn job, earning those tips. Danny just swiped it from his hand saying, this is what you owe me. Oh, and you owe Karen and this and that. And you and Karen are going to get back together. And it's like, no one wants to believe Zach is doing better for himself. Hell, Andy, oh, we're getting to Andy. It's like, nobody wants to believe the guy is trying to do better for himself. He's trying to move forward. He's trying to pay off debt so these people can just stop slandering his name and dragging it through the mud. But there are always going to be people saying, hey, I knew you when you weren't nothing. Oh, yeah, you claim to be trying to do better. Even though the proof is in her face, Zach has been running around this place the entire day making tips, and she constantly wants to tell him, oh, here's what you're not doing, or here's what you weren't doing back in the day. So Zach, keep doing what you've been doing. All right, so we go over to Karen at the salon. She comes in. She's basically got an attitude with Pam about the whole situation. Oh, why the door lock and everything? Well, yeah, none of the other beauticians have come in yet. So, yeah, she's just short with Pam about the situation with Aaron and Zach and Fatima. That's literally all it is. And no, remember, Pam wasn't the one that used the credit card. Even though we didn't see the camera footage, it was stated that one of Karen's customers took the credit card, I think. Yeah, it's kind of ironic because just like what happens to Calvin later in the episode, the same thing was kind of happening with Karen, Well, in Calvin's case, it was just a random guy in his room that took the checkbook and drained his accounts. But in Karen's case, it was a customer that took the credit card and, took $5,000, right? So basically, Andy comes in to reassure Karen face to face that I didn't know anything about Fatima. I would have told you, right? Yeah, right. Well, hey, she's a good person. Karen doesn't even want to hear that. Yeah, well, Fatima's a good person. Andy, I ain't trying to hear all that. So then Karen, gets the information from Andy about the whole photo shoot thing. Yeah, Gary came over with a guy who's a photographer. Wait, did you check him out to make sure he's legit? Steve DeVoe. Oh, yeah, I know him. He's top of the line. So, before Andy leaves, Karen makes a jab. It's like, wait, Andy's like, yeah, he said, the photo shoot's at 7 after work, and then he has a surprise for me. Yeah, let's just hope it's not another trip to the country. Well, you could have shortened your answer. Yeah, I know. So basically after that, we go over to the law firm. Andy, Fatima, good morning, Mrs. Barnes. And Andy's like, hey, come with me. We need to talk. Close the door. So basically she's all bossy and shit. And she's like, my best friend is upset with me. So did you or did you not know about Zach and Karen? When I tell you how pissed off I was at this scene. First of all, you brought personal matters into the workspace. You're jumping down poor Fatima's throat. She ain't do a damn thing. My question is this. You know what? I'm going to put Andy on blast here. Even though she has those fine cheekbones and I love the way she looks in that dress. The girls hate you and Gary together, right? And, Karen's your best friend and whatnot. Even though I don't believe Fatima told Andy this, but remember in season 2, episode 1 or episode 2, basically the beginning of season 2, when the FBI showed up at the law firm looking for Andy, and then Fatima tried to buy time, she went in the office and hid incriminating evidence that would have put Andy in a bad situation. She put her own career and, position with the law, the government on the line doing that. And she got the nerve to get short with Fatima about some damn relationship issues. What the hell? Like, Andy has, okay, let me keep going. So Fatima honestly didn't know. And Andy's like, okay, yeah, I believe you. And then Fatima just wants to make it right because, look, I don't want your friends thinking that I'm the kind of woman that would just swoop in and date somebody's ex without them, basically she doesn't want to have a bad reputation. It's like, well, should I call Karen? No, don't do that. It's like, well, hey, just tell Karen that this thing between me and Zach is over because, and going back to what I said about Danny, when you're trying to do better for yourself, people will always look at the old you and judge you by those standards. So when Fatima is saying that, Andy's like, wait, so Zach is the guy you were telling me about? Yeah, he's full of potential. He's a hard worker. He's a good guy. Andy just can't believe it because of her situation with Zach because, Karen being the bestie and Karen always spilling the tea about what Zach. And look, Zach was trash. He was. So she literally can't believe it. So I think after Fatima leaves the office, Andy's kind of like, just stunned the fact that she can't believe Zach is capable of changing and whatnot. I'm like, this coming from the woman who was messing around with a married man, and you know what? I ain't got nothing else to say. So Zach is doing his work, and then there's a woman he drops off. She's freaking out because she forgot a laptop bag on the plane. And when he's like, yeah, just have a seat, I'll go get it right now. It's like, no, I'll stand right here. Okay, fine. Okay, hey, please, car coming through. Gotta get this lady's bag. And so she's freaking out. Sabrina. She is, I think Maurice tells Jacoby that Sabrina hasn't left her office all day. And then Maurice is doing some more information online and snaps at Jacoby to mind his own business. So he calls Calvin because the guy who took the checkbook from earlier in the episode, the one I was sleeping over in Calvin's room, basically has gone to a number of different banks writing checks. And now the banks are starting to, bounce the checks. So basically, all of Calvin's accounts are drained right now. So he has to come down to the bank to talk with Sabrina in order to, report the fraudulent activity. And then from there, be able to restore his money. And it's like, he doesn't want to do it. I'll just go to another branch. Nope. Sabrina's the only person who could do it. They can't do it in a day. Sabrina's the only one that could do it. So then Maurice is like, well, you need to do it so you can pay your half of the rent. And I'm thinking, wait, didn't Calvin already pay his rent in advance? Maurice, Danny, these people have short-term memories about rent. Anyway, so Gary calls Danny in the middle of her shift in order to get the girls to come out to the photo shoot at 7 because don't tell Andy you're showing up. It's a surprise. Danny's suspicious and hangs up, then calls Sabrina and Karen about it. And then, photo shoot, Karen's like, yeah, okay, she told me about that. See, this is what I'm talking about. Y'all holding out. And then Karen's like, Danny, she just told me about it this morning. So they said they're not going to call Andy because they suspect foul play. It's like she knows about the photo shoot, but apparently doesn't know about this surprise inviting the girls. So yeah, that's basically the end of the episode. So guys, this episode, yeah, like I said, I didn't like the regression. I feel like Gary's regressing back to season 1, but I'm not mad at Gary. It's like Andy's the one who's still falling for this bull crap. Then the women getting on Zach's case, specifically Andy and Danny. Sabrina just being messy, causing all this drama. Maurice, look, the argument could be made, Maurice is messy, he's nosy, he's just starting to start some crap again by having Calvin come down to the bank. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, his account is with that bank, but I'm with Calvin. I'm like, couldn't he just go to another branch in order to report the fraudulent activity and whatnot about the checks being bounced? I mean, like, I've had that happen before with my debit card, like a couple of times some fraudulent activity was done, but all it took for me was to call the number on the back of the card and, report the fraudulent activity, and the bank handled it within a short amount of time. So, I personally never had checks, so I really don't know if you would need to go into the bank for that. But I will say that Maurice was just doing his job and looking out for his roommate, because friendship or not, hell, when it comes rent time, you better have your half or that's it. But, yeah, because Calvin's like, I don't think this roommate thing is going to work out. Well, yeah, we can talk about that later, but you need to bring your ass down here now. Your own damn account. Hello, how you doing, man? That was actually pretty funny. Yeah, this wasn't a great episode. And then Andy jumping on Fatima like that with her judgmental behind. So, Yeah, this episode wasn't the best. You know, Karen's and her feelings, and trust and believe, I have a lot to say when I do my trailer breakdown for next week. But let me know your thoughts on the episode. Like I said, 4 out of 10. It wasn't that good at all, and honestly, I'm glad I was asleep through it. If you want to donate to the channel, feel free to do so on PayPal or Cash App. And how do you feel about the whole Sun situation? There's a lot of foul play going on, if you ask me. And I'll talk to you all in the next video.